Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am your co-host, Tyler, here with my brother, Ryan, and we are going to be breaking down what has happened so far in the free agency for the NFC South, starting with the Atlanta Falcons. But before we get into that, Ryan and I, we want to thank all of our new subscribers that joined us during our 7-round mock draft series. Over 32 videos, one for each team. We got 240 new subscribers helping us trying to reach our goal to get to 1,000 by NFL Draft Day. To be honest, Ryan and I, we honestly didn't think of getting to 1,000 by draft day was possible when we started. I think we're at 580 or whatever it was. And because you guys now, it's actually a realistic goal. So this is your first time seeing this. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, leave a comment, let us know what you think the Falcons need to do in free agency and who they should draft. Also, go check out the Falcons mock draft series. So that being said, Ryan, let's get into it. The Falcons, I'm the resident Falcons fan of this channel. And so far, I have liked what I've seen from the Falcons. I like the Jessie Bates signing. I like that they've got David Onyemata. And you know what? I actually like that. I think signing Taylor Heineke is a good safety option.
Yeah, sets the floor for the quarterback.
Sets the floor. We don't truly know what we have yet in Desmond Ridder. I'm glad we didn't. I know this is going to be very interesting viewpoint, I would say, but I'm glad that we didn't spend a lot of money to go get Lamar Jackson. Not that I don't think he could immediately improve the team. That would have been a majority of our cap space. As of sitting right now, we're sitting at about $21 million in cap space according to over the cap. Let me double check that. Yeah, $21.6 million in cap space. So we still have a lot more that we can maneuver with. And with those three signings right there, and honestly, then we actually signed Mac Hollins, who I think has some potential, kind of fits in the build of what we're looking for. I think we've set ourselves up for a decent free agency, and then to honestly have a very defensive focus and get a lot of good defensive players in this draft to start rebuilding this defense.
No, yeah. I think if you're a Falcons fan, you have to be pretty happy with how this offseason has gone so far. They had the cap space to go out and add really good players, and I think they did that, and they're going to continue to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think they've set themselves up really well going into the draft. So let's go ahead and get into the offseason. Let's start out with the losses, and then we'll get into the additions. So for the Falcons, this segment's going to be pretty brief. They don't have any losses. They didn't lose anybody.
So they did lose Isaiah Oliver. They're kind of, I'd say, nickel corner to the 49ers. That being said, though, he has kind of been, I feel like, a 1 year, just keep re-signing, I think, over the past couple of seasons. So he is replaceable. I mean, he was a good player. I think he's going to fit well into that 49ers system. But I think he's easily replaceable. But correct. Other than that,
PFF let me down. It says they have no losses here. So.
Well, no, I would say no significant losses. Like he was he was a player for the Atlanta Falcons. It started at times, but he is replaceable. He can absolutely replaceable. Their other losses are insignificant, so to say. So that's why it's kind of coming into this offseason has been a lot of good moves, in my opinion. Upgraded safety to Jessie Bates. He's instantly going to be the starter, obviously, here. We talked about David Onyemata. He's going to be a running mate with quarterback competition.
You're going in and out.
I am.
I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, shoot. It was amazing stuff. It's amazing stuff. But anyways, just saying, the signing, as I mentioned, Jessie Bates coming at safety, got that locked down for the next couple of years. David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett's one of the best defensive tackles in the league, and now you get him a solid running mate. I think you could still even address that position in the draft, if not maybe a little bit later on. But that's where I think moving on then to what else they've added, as we talked about that, and other moves that they've made. They have solidified the right side of the offensive line over the next couple of years with Chris Lindstrom, who statistically was the best offensive guard according to PFF, which just let you down. So maybe they're not the most reliable. Caleb McGarry also, they re-signed him. I do actually kind of like the Jonnu Smith trade. Maybe we can ink a little bit left of his career. It was just for a 7th-round pick. But if you look at when Jonnu Smith was most successful, it was with his time at Tennessee when Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator. So he's older, yes. I completely recognize that. But when he was successful, it was under his offensive guidance. So maybe we can find lightning in a bottle. Also, I think Matt Collins, too, as I mentioned, is a good addition. He stepped up big time, I think, for the Raiders this past season and had some good games. I think he can be, at minimum, just good depth piece as well. He can come in and have some veteran experience.
No, yeah, I like that one. And then also, as of today, they signed Scotty Miller, the speedy wide receiver from Tampa Bay. So that's another good speed option at the wide receiver position. I think you couple that with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and I think that they're building a pretty good receiving room there. I still think it's a position that they could address in the draft. However, they've given themselves a lot of flexibility to bring in a more developmental piece later on in the draft, where I think this sweet spot is for this wide receiver group. So,
well, and I even think, too, I need to go back and double check their picks, but I think from their third round pick to I think then they have 2 fourths as well. I'm looking at that range as if when they want to address the receiver position. I think it's like pick 77 and then pick 110, 113, something around there. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. No, but so I really like what they've done so far. A couple other not so major re-signings. They kept Lorenzo Carter, Bradley Pinion, and then Keith Smith, the fullback as well. So all in all, I think they've done pretty good. And so let's go ahead and move on now to what we think that this allows them to do in the draft, specifically with that 8th overall pick. And Tyler, we talked about this a little bit pre-show, but who do you think that the Falcons are going to go with here at following this free agency at pick 8?
So we talked about this, and maybe now with Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Raiders, maybe there's a little bit of X factor, but I still think that the Raiders can go Will Levis. And I say all that is it's like those top 7 players are essentially locked. It seems like, from the 4 quarterbacks, and you got Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, maybe. And so that's where if someone wants to vary from that, let's say the Lions want to go with a corner, or maybe if Jalen Carter falls and then the Seahawks want to go corner or safety or something like that, that's going to leave the Falcons, I think, in a great spot to get kind of whoever is remaining, where they don't have to make any of these decisions of like what the Panthers are doing. Let's say they take CJ Stroud. Well, he's a bust, but Bryce Young becomes a franchise Tom Brady-esque level type quarterback. It's like they traded away their future and completely missed, While the Falcons, they're kind of in that sweet spot of like best player available, whoever's going to fit their board. If I think we talked about it before this, let's say Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson are off the board. I'd say most likely they go with Christian Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon, whichever one they like the most. One's need still, and maybe they can address this later in the draft for the Falcons, is left guard. So maybe off chance they go with someone like Peter Skoronski, who I think who is a little bit smaller offensive tackle that can kick in the guard, who would be an immediate.
He's a good size offensive tackle. He just has 32 and 1/4 inch arms.
Yeah. Well, and he's played, I think you told me this, like he's played every position, I think, on the offensive line. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he can
came in as a center prospect and then played guard. Then after Rashawn Slater left, he played tackle.
Yeah.
Then they left him there because he was so good at tackle. So
yeah. So let's say maybe an off chance they go that direction, but I think they're in a sweet spot to kind of just get the best player available that's on the board. So if Jalen Carter is having some issues, if teams want to pass on him and he's there at 8, if they are okay with those off the field issues, and I guess his pro day performance they thought was just a fluke. I mean, imagine Jalen Carter and Grady Jarrett next to one another. So that's why I think the Falcons are kind of in a sweet spot to just take best player available, whoever wasn't taken.
Yeah. And you're still top 10. You're still going to get a premier pick. I just think they're going to go best player available. I do struggle to think that they would take a player on the offensive side of the ball. I think you look at their last 2 first-round picks. You have Drake London and then Kyle Pitts, both pass-catching type guys. I could see them maybe investing heavily in a left tackle. Peter Skoronski, I think, gives them the most flexibility there for success at the next level. But if they really want to go with Paris Johnson Jr., who's, in my opinion, is the best left tackle in this class, I think they would be the start of a run on left tackles.
They could. And it's an interesting point to think about because Jake Matthews has been a great left tackle. I'm not saying we should move on from him anytime soon, but he is just getting up there in age. So it is kind of one of those things to think about is like maybe getting his successor. And that's maybe why Skoronski
it makes the most sense
because he can kick in for guard in the meantime. and they can move over. Maybe Caleb McGarry, they'd want to switch him over to left tackle. I think that'd be a big leap because he finally had a good first year at right tackle. So like, hey, let's just be good at right tackle. We'll worry about everything else. So it is something interesting to think about. But in general, though, I agree. I don't want them to take quarterback. That's honestly the only position I really just don't want them to go. Let's say Will Levis falls to them. I don't want them to go quarterback.
And in my opinion, you approach Desmond Ridder this year and you're like, we're giving you the reins. If we go 4-13, that's fine. Like, we'll draft a guy next year, but at least we'll know that Desmond Ridder's not the guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell Desmond Ridder that to his face, but yes.
Well, I would tell Desmond Ridder, you have the season to start.
No, I know. I'm just busting your chops. But in general, though, yeah, it is. It's a fun time to be a Falcons fan. The rest of the division seems like they're struggling. We are on the offensive of going and getting players. I think we've hit on some pieces in the draft these past couple of drafts. So I think there's some fun times. I think we can. I think we can actually do it this year, and just win the NFC South. I don't think we're going to win the Super Bowl, but just win. Let's just push through because this will be the third season of Arthur Smith. And second for Terry Fontenot. And so I believe it's second for Terry Fontenot, or is it third? I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. Yeah, so that's fine. But it's second or third. I'm getting them all mixed up. But let's move on, though, now to the Carolina Panthers. But before we get into that, if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and like this video and share it with your friends and family. Ryan and I, we have a goal of trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by April 27th. It's literally, as of today, less than a month away. So we're sitting at 820, and we have a rapid growing community of football fanatics just like yourself. So subscribe, and we will keep continuing to post great content.